What is the stupidest thing you have ever done while drunk? Someone randomly invited me over to their place and they were having a party. I didn't know them, never met them before. I proceeded to get completely hammered on slushies with vodka, then puked all over their floor. Posted my address online during a drunken suicidal rant, lol. Cops called at 6 a.m. Stayed in the middle of a busy street at 11 p.m., after which I climbed onto the roof of the house I was at. I also ended up giving my best friend a hand job. That night, went alone with a car in a football, soccer for you Americans caught by night. I mean I rammed the gates with that small Citroen Saxo and started drifting, making eights around all the court, using the score doors, or how the hell you call them in English, as focal points. There was snow on the ground, so it was real fun. Then I passed over some ice while I had the handbrake pulled and hit the door at 50 kilometers per hour. Had no security belts on, so I hit the steering wheel with my head and passed out. The police woke me up an hour or so later and I said something like, "Shit, worst hangover ever," and they laughed their ass off. Was lucky I wasn't on the road so they couldn't accuse me of drunk driving. BC, I said I had parked in the court's parking lot. In reality, I was returning home from a day spent drinking and smoking pot from 11 a.m. to 2 o'clock at one of my friend's house, and the court in question is very close to where I live, so probably I had this stupid idea and there was no one with me telling me to just go home. I remember I was listening to some very calm classical music while doing it. Edit. Sorry for poor English. Gave a Uber driver a $20 tip for a 10-mile drive. In my defense, they were a great conversationalist. Went to University of Wisconsin-Madison to party on Halloween. It was a 2-hour drive and was drinking on the way. Got there at 5 p.m. and started chugging Gold Slaffer and vodka. Last thing I remember, it was 7 p.m., so it was time to go to the house parties. Don't remember anything until 10 a.m. the next day when I woke up. Apparently I puked in 3 random people's houses, and not in the bathroom. I didn't know any of them. I called and texted my exes that were in town as well, then got super pissed off when they wouldn't meet up with me. I got my best friend jumped by a group of guys. I broke someone's toilet and someone else's door. The whole night was stupid and was so embarrassed. Edit. I also went as a Chippendale. No shirt, no coat. It was around 30 degrees that night. Roller skated down a flight of stairs in a friend's house. Later that night, I went streaking, while still on skates, with bottle rockets sticking out of the bun in my hair. My ex caught a train to Budapest from Prague but left my stuff in Prague because I forgot to check out of my hostel. Joined a hot wing competition out of a dare from my ex-GF who knows I can't handle spicy, hot foods real well. We were both drunk out of our minds and she promised to do some real dirty stuff in our hotel room later that night if I ended up eating at least 15 wings. What was supposed to be a fun-filled 4-day weekend ended up being a nerve visit and a 3-day stay at the hospital for capsaicin poisoning. Pissed on the doors of a church. Went for a jog at 2 a.m. and texted my ex's brother until he told me to stop blowing up his phone. Beyond that, I have gotten so drunk while my boyfriend was asleep that I woke him up with my beer breath asking him to dance. He has a history of his drunk father waking him up, so I triggered his anxiety. Man, did I feel guilty. Edit. I also dropped acid after 3 beers while home alone. Proceeded to trip for 14 hours and actually slept through the peak. I don't think that night's experience exists in this reality. I decided to drive. Never again. It was a rainy night and I was a little too confident in my shitty car to make it through a muddy street. I took a turn too hard and ended up in a ditch. It was 2 a.m. and I was in the middle of nowhere with no one to call because I failed to pay my cell phone bill. The only call I could make was to 911 and told him the truth and to send someone to pick me up and send me to jail because I was an idiot. I waited for a while, then headlights showed up in the distance. I put my hands up to be arrested, but I heard the familiar voice of my sister. She received a call from my friends who were concerned that I wouldn't make it home, and she took me back to my place. I got really lucky that night, and learned a valuable lesson. I could have killed someone that night, and I'll never forget that. Probably drive. Yes, I know it was stupid and could have killed somebody or myself. I got extremely lucky and somehow made it home. Pissing off a bridge. The problem was that I was above the river, so it went onto the street and there were people there. When I was in college, I got drunk one night and punched a pint glass. It ended up slicing my finger really badly, like there was a flap of skin that came up. Went to the bathroom and ran it underwater, but it just kept bleeding. I didn't know what to do and was too drunk to try to deal with it. So I just wrapped my hand in a towel and tried to go to sleep. Woke up to knocking at my door and it ended up being security. He followed a trail of blood from the bathroom to my room and wanted to make sure I was alright. I showed him my finger and he was like, "Come on, you gotta go to the hospital." Dude was a bro and drove me there even though it was like 3 a.m. Saw a doctor and he had to give me a bunch of stitches. He said I was very lucky, because if it was just a tiny bit deeper, I would have probably had done permanent damage and lost mobility of the finger. Now I have this scar on my finger shaped like a Nike swoosh. https://i.imager.com/chqrgo.jpg. 2. Remind me not to be stupid and try to fight glass. I was drunk up on a mountain which was known to have a decent-sized population of black bears. Black bears are generally not aggressive and, being drunk, I decided I would go outside to find one to pet. After a few minutes of stumbling around outside, I encountered a black bear scavenging in a garbage can. I realized in that moment that I in fact did not want to pet a black bear. My best friend and I drank a half-gallon of Jose Cuervo while spending the day fishing for trout at a riff lake. We didn't have much luck, no idea why, so we left and headed into a small town by the lake. We got kicked out both bars and decided to make the hour drive back home. Going down a rural highway, my friend says he has to take a shit. I start to pull over and he asks me what the fuck I'm doing. I tell him I'm pulling over so he can shit. He says no. That drunk fuck proceeds to crawl out the window of the truck to the bed, sits with his ass hanging out over the tailgate of the truck and takes a shit while I'm driving down the highway at 55 miles per hour. The whole time, yelling at me that I better not slow down. Very young and dumb. I was making mini ravioli. I went to the sink to drain out the pasta water, but I forgot to put the strainer in the sink, so all of my ravioli just went down the drain like a slip and slide. I ordered bubble wrap off Amazon just to see if they would wrap it in more bubble wrap, then promptly forgot that I had done so. Imagine my confusion 5 business days later. As a bet, I sat Boreas on a searchlight in front of discotheque. You know, the ones that shoot beams of light into the clouds. Yeah, turns out they get pretty hot. Got third-degree burns on my ass. Couldn't sit down for 2 weeks. Had to wear a diaper bandage. Lucky I didn't get my balls. Done a ton of similar stupid things, but this one, among friends and family, is regarded as my greatest drunk fuck-up. Woke up in fresh pants, asleep on the bathroom floor, smelling like I'd just showered. My wife wouldn't tell me what happened for days. Basically, I'd been afternoon drinking with workmates, which turned into evening drinking. I got home and went into the bathroom, because I didn't feel so great. I was sitting on the toilet because both ends had decided to give way at once. Throwing up in the sink of our small bathroom. I fell off the toilet and passed out on the floor, and my wife came to make sure I wasn't dead. She cleaned me up, changed my underwear and covered me. That's as much detail as she would give me. She laughs hysterically when she sees Ferrero Rocher to this day, for some reason. That was my most recent. When I was younger, there were multiple incidents just as silly. While I was on holidays with my mates, I was bet €25 that I couldn't balance on the taps at a bar. It didn't end well. I balanced for about 6 seconds then fell into the bar side, knocked over a lot of bottles. The bartender had an interesting response. He said I could fight him. If I won, I didn't have to pay for all the shit I broke. If I lost, I had to pay for all the shit I broke and I would be beaten to shit. I won because I got hit with a solid gut punch and threw up into the bartender's mouth while he was trash-talking me. Walked out with a ban from the bar. Didn't have to pay. I picked up a fight with the couch. Got drunk and stayed drunk for about 10 years. Alcoholism is a hell of a thing. 3 years sober now, so that's cool. I lit a mortar shell in my hand and dropped it in front of a group of people at a party. I was fast enough to run behind them and use a chick as a meat shield. I still don't know how I managed to do it, but I broke into a solicitor's office and fell asleep in there. Woke up to a very angry lawyer threatening to call the police and had to walk through a snowy city with no shoes and no